They've gone through feelings of being impure as a parent because of their kinks. So the question for today, they've been able to compartmentalize their kinky lifestyle and their parenting. They've gone through feelings of being impure as a parent because of their kinks. But Opie now has a new partner who's also kinky, and this partner is now also feeling guilty, and this is affecting their kink-based relationship. How can Opie get his partner to stop feeling the, quote, parent guilt?
I'm not a parent myself, so I don't exactly understand what this has to do with parenting. I think what I'm understanding from it is the notion of sex for reproduction as the pure version and sex for pleasure as the impure version.
I had a different take on this. When I read the question, my thinking was that OP instinctively thinks of sex or kinky sex as some kind of a guilty pleasure, a pseudo-evil thing that they do, and the shadow selves that become manifest during kinky play, well, that energy is not energy that's appropriate to show towards a child. And so the word that the OP has even used is compartmentalizes. They have their kink side in the bedroom, and then when they come out of the bedroom, they put on the mantle of a parent. The OP has already reconciled this, but now their partner is going through the same thing all over again. So the way that I took the question is the fundamental issue is OP believes that there's something almost sinful about being kinky that makes them unfit to be a parent. What good parent would do the kind of things that OP is doing behind closed doors? So I almost feel like it's someone who has not integrated their shadow self. They have experienced it. My thinking is we all have this shadow self that has these needs that come out in kink. Many people, like OP, have compartmentalized them. They indulge in them, but to some extent, part of them thinks of them as wrong. That's sort of that guilty pleasure, that thing that I do that I don't ever talk about, like I, go bang a stripper in some hotel or whatever it is that they sort of keep secret and hidden. And they have put a box around that activity and says, sometimes I just am imperfect and impure, and that's just who I am, and that's just the way it is. There has been a process of saying, maybe that's a healthy thing. Maybe there's a side of me that needs expression like that, and I should embrace it and try to find a healthy way to incorporate it into my life so that I can be more whole as a person and not have to break my psyche in two, where sometimes I go into the naughty things, but that's not really me. That's just some dark side of me. This is especially concerning for OP because it seems like they have this perspective of what is appropriate behavior for the archetype of a father to the child. That person is pure and wise, and they don't have any of these base instincts that he's exercising. OP themselves have, like I said, reconciled this by saying, what parent is perfect? Sure. It's an interesting framing. It's like, well, I guess we're all imperfect. I'm imperfect too. Sure. And now they're trying to say, my partner is going through the same thing, so how can I get them to reconcile with this thing? Right now, OP has done it by compartmentalizing, which is, I think, an imperfect way to address that problem. And they're trying to figure out, how can I get my partner to compartmentalize just like I did? What are your thoughts?
I do think that the notion of impurity is interesting here. Part of what happens is as we grow up, we develop a persona that is the part of ourselves that interacts with the world in the ways that the world finds acceptable. Mom tells us you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and we want to please mom. So in order to maintain that relationship, we modify our behaviors in these ways. Then it reaches a point where even when mom's not there, I know that I should, quote unquote, behave in these ways according to these rules and ideas. And so to that degree, we internalize the persona. And then the part of us that has internalized the persona looks at the part of us that wants to throw a temper tantrum and is like, oh, that's the bad part of us. That's the naughty part of us. And that gets extrapolated further into sexual behaviors. And, oh, that's the impure part of us that wants to behave in those degenerate and perverted ways. And so part of how this comes up is that it's just an excessively strong persona. It's an excessively strong socialization that has been internalized and then turned against the shadow self, against the parts of ourself that are really there and are now being judged even within our own minds, even within our own intimate relationships. There is no space for that shadow self to come out unless it comes out in an environment of judgment. I may compartmentalize and go do this terrible thing over here, and then that compartmentalization starts to break down as I'm interacting with my child. So as I'm teaching my child to have a persona and to say, you need to wear clothes, you can't run around naked, you need to behave in these persona socialized ways, who am I to say that if I'm engaging in these other behaviors over here? I think that failure to integrate the shadow, to realize that these were always social behaviors. And social behaviors fundamentally do not apply to the bedroom, to an intimate relationship, or within my own mind. They apply to society at large. They apply to greater and greater degrees with strangers. And part of gaining intimacy with anyone is letting them into more and more of my shadow. How you and I have been friends for years, and we've gotten upset with each other. We've yelled at each other. We've hung up on each other on the phone. Part of that's intimacy. Now, should I behave that way in public? Should I yell at my boss and hang up on him? Probably not. That's probably not the best option, but there's an intimacy in friendship that is at least a part of the same intimacy that, hey, anger is in the shadows. Anger, rage is down there in the depths. So much more so for sex and kinky sex between intimate partners, that it is part of who you are, and you have to own that, and you have to realize that inside the privacy of your own head, inside the privacy of your own consenting intimate relationship, the social rules just don't apply. This is actually not, and I don't like to get super negative towards anyone's religion, but this is actually, to me, the core of poison in modern Christianity, which is the notion that thoughts can be sins. And I was raised Muslim. Explicitly in Islam, that is not the case. There is a Quran verse that says what you think is not the issue. It's what you do. The notion that thoughts can be sins means that you are perverted for having these thoughts at all, for participating in them, even in your private relationship. And I do think that culturally, even if you're not explicitly Christian, culturally we absorb that a little bit because that's the dominant social frame of our Western civilization. And I do think that there's a core of poison there that prevents us from fully owning the shadow in a way that is most healthy and flourishing, where it's just about what you do, and are you doing it with someone that has consented to have that done, and are you able to be intimate in that relationship and then be proper socially in your persona self.